Every time you plug in your Tesla, every time you charge your iPhone, you're connected to a remote salt flat in Bolivia, where indigenous communities are watching their ancestral lands transform into the world's largest lithium extraction site. While Silicon Valley celebrates the clean energy revolution, 13,000 feet above sea level in the Andes Mountains, the Salar de Uyuni tells a different story. This pristine white expanse, larger than the state of Connecticut, sits atop an estimated 21 million tons of lithium, more than half the world's known reserves. It's a treasure that could either lift Bolivia from poverty or destroy one of Earth's most unique ecosystems forever. Maria Choque has lived her entire life on the edge of the salt flats. Her great-grandmother harvested salt here by hand. Her grandmother did the same, but Maria won't. Instead, she watches massive trucks and industrial pumps extract the silvery white metal that powers our digital lives, pumps that consume 375,000 gallons of water every hour in one of the driest places on Earth. The numbers are staggering. To produce just 1 ton of lithium requires approximately 500,000 gallons of water. A single electric vehicle battery needs about 17 pounds of lithium. Do the math, and each Tesla Model S battery requires roughly 4 million gallons of water to produce its lithium component alone. President Luis Arce calls it Bolivia's pathway to prosperity. His government promises that lithium will transform Bolivia from South America's poorest nation into a regional powerhouse. The projected revenue is astronomical, potentially generating $24 billion annually by 2030. But prosperity for whom? The Quechua and Aymara people who call this region home have a different perspective. Celestino Condori, a community leader from nearby Colchani, explains through weathered hands that gesture toward the horizon. His Spanish is mixed with Quechua, but his message is clear. The water that has sustained their communities for generations is disappearing. Traditional quinoa farming, which has fed families here for over 1,000 years, requires increasingly scarce water resources now diverted to lithium extraction. The sacred flamingo populations that have migrated to these salt flats for millennia are declining as their breeding grounds become industrial sites. Dr. Jennifer Hinojosa, a hydrologist at the University of La Paz, has spent 5 years studying the impact of lithium extraction on local water systems. Her research reveals that the brine extraction process doesn't just remove lithium, it fundamentally alters the underground water table. Once changed, these aquifer systems may never recover. Meanwhile, in Detroit and California, automotive executives tout their commitment to sustainability. General Motors has pledged to eliminate tailpipe emissions by 2035. Ford promises carbon neutrality by 2050. Tesla's mission statement begins with accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. But sustainability measured how and for whom? The Salar de Uyuni exists in an impossible intersection of global climate goals and local environmental justice. Every electric vehicle battery represents a reduction in urban air pollution, a decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, a step toward energy independence. Yet each battery also represents thousands of gallons of water extracted from indigenous lands, traditional communities displaced, and fragile ecosystems altered. Bolivia's approach differs markedly from lithium extraction in Chile and Argentina. While neighboring countries allowed private multinational corporations to dominate their lithium sectors, Bolivia insists on state control. The government promises that profits will benefit all Bolivians, funding education, healthcare, and infrastructure development. Roberto Fernandez manages operations at Lithium, Bolivia's state-owned lithium company. Standing beside massive evaporation pools that stretch toward the horizon like geometric mirrors, he explains Bolivia's vision. Unlike the private mining operations that extract resources and export profits, Bolivia plans to build the entire supply chain domestically. Lithium extraction, battery component manufacturing, and even electric vehicle assembly, all within Bolivia's borders. This vertical integration strategy could theoretically maximize local economic benefit while maintaining environmental oversight. However, implementation remains challenging. Bolivia currently produces less than 1% of global lithium supply, despite holding the largest reserves. Technical expertise, infrastructure development, and international market access all present significant obstacles. The global context adds urgency to Bolivia's lithium story. Right now, China actually dominates lithium processing, controlling over 60% of global capacity. The United States, recognizing the strategic importance of lithium for both the clean energy transition and national security, has designated lithium a critical mineral. So, competition for Bolivia's reserves involves not just companies but entire nations. Back in Colchani, children play soccer on fields where their parents once harvested salt. The local school now receives government funding that's linked to lithium revenues. New roads connect remote communities to regional markets, and healthcare clinics stock medicines that were previously unavailable. Progress, as defined by economic indicators, is, well, undeniable. Yet Maria Choque points to the horizon, where industrial facilities interrupt the salt flats' pristine geometry. She speaks of dreams where her ancestors returned to ask what happened to the sacred landscape they protected for generations. In her native Quechua, she describes the concept of summa camana, living well in harmony with nature and community, a philosophy that doesn't easily translate into quarterly profit reports or carbon emissions reduction targets. Environmental scientist Dr. Carlos Reynaga has monitored wildlife populations around lithium extraction sites for 3 years. His data, shows measurable impacts on bird migration patterns, plant communities, and insect populations. While these changes don't necessarily indicate ecological collapse, they do represent alterations to systems that evolved over thousands of years. The flamingo populations particularly concern researchers. These birds travel thousands of miles to reach the Salar de Uyuni for breeding season. Industrial activity, noise pollution, and altered water chemistry all influence their behavior. Flamingo numbers have declined 18% since large-scale lithium extraction began, though researchers still debate whether correlation implies causation. American consumers driving electric vehicles rarely consider these connections. The marketing narrative, emphasizes clean technology, environmental responsibility, and energy independence. Lithium-ion batteries enable the clean energy transition that could mitigate climate change impacts affecting millions globally. Yet the materials enabling this transition create localized environmental and social impacts in places most Americans will never see. This disconnect reflects broader patterns in global resource extraction. Wealthy nations consume materials extracted from poorer nations, often with environmental and social costs borne by local communities who receive minimal benefit from resource wealth. Bolivia's insistence on maintaining state control of lithium represents an attempt to break this pattern, but, success remains uncertain. International demand for lithium is projected to increase tenfold by 2030 as electric vehicle adoption accelerates. Battery technology improvements may reduce lithium requirements per unit, but total consumption will likely continue growing rapidly. Bolivia's reserves position the country to potentially benefit enormously from this demand, if extraction can be managed sustainably and, honestly, equitably. The technical challenges of lithium extraction in Bolivia are significant. The Salar de Uyuni's lithium exists in complex brines with high magnesium content, making separation difficult and expensive compared to operations in Chile or Australia. Traditional evaporation methods require 18 to 24 months to concentrate lithium sufficiently for processing. New direct extraction technologies promise faster results, but remain largely unproven at industrial scale. Weather patterns also complicate operations. The Salar experiences seasonal flooding that can disrupt extraction activities. Climate change may alter precipitation patterns, affecting both extraction operations and local water resources that communities depend upon. In La Paz, government officials balance competing pressures. Environmental groups demand stronger protections for indigenous communities and ecosystems. International investors require regulatory certainty and infrastructure development. Local communities seek economic opportunities while preserving cultural traditions. Opposition politicians criticize both environmental impacts and slow progress developing lithium resources. The stakes extend beyond Bolivia's borders. If Bolivia successfully develops sustainable, equitable lithium extraction while maintaining environmental protections, it could provide a model for responsible resource development globally. If extraction proceeds without adequate protections, it risks repeating patterns of environmental degradation and social displacement that have characterized mining operations worldwide for generations. As evening approaches over the Salar de Uyuni, the salt flats transform into a mirror reflecting clouds and sky so perfectly that the horizon disappears. This optical illusion seems fitting for Bolivia's lithium story, where the boundary between progress and preservation, between global needs and local rights, remains, well, difficult to discern. Maria Choque locks her small store selling quinoa and llama wool crafts to tourists. Tomorrow she will open again, serving visitors who come to photograph the world's largest mirror, many unaware they stand atop the mineral that powers their cameras, their phones, their electric rental cars. The irony is not lost on her. The question facing Bolivia and ultimately facing all of us who benefit from lithium-powered technology is whether it's possible to extract resources responsibly in an interconnected world where local actions have global consequences and global demands create local impacts. The answer matters not just for Bolivia's indigenous communities or American electric vehicle owners, but for the possibility of truly sustainable development in the 21st century. The next time you plug in your electric vehicle or charge your phone, remember the Salar de Uyuni. Remember Maria Choque and Celestino Condori. Remember that every clean technology relies on materials extracted from somewhere, by someone, with consequences that extend far beyond the technology itself. The clean energy transition we desperately need will only succeed if we account for all its costs, seen and unseen, local and global, immediate and generational. The future of both Bolivia and our planet may depend on getting this balance right.